Mr. Hansen's class from a small town in the Midwest has taken a trip to Washington, D.C. Today's activity is to visit the monuments dedicated to those who served in our country by serving in the American forces. We join up with them at the National Mall, not far from the White House.
All right, everyone. I know I've said this before, but it's very important you keep track of your money you've been inside. This is a big place. I don't want any of y'all wander off on your own. I really need everyone to stay with the group. Got it?
Got it, Mr. Hansen. Seth, I've got my eyes on you.
I sure hope you two are being sincere. I sure you no one would be laughing if some two hooligans got separate from the group. Okay, let's get started. We'll be visiting with servicemen and women as we make our stops at each monument and memorial. I know you will cause him or her to have a good impression of you from Midwest by remembrance.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Mark Masters. I currently serve in the Army. I will be telling you about the Korean War Memorial today. Does anyone know when the Korean War took place?
Yeah, wasn't it after World War II?
You are correct, sir. The Korean War started in 1950 and lasted for 3 years. What you see before you are 19 stainless steel figures wearing the ponchos that armed service members were often seen wearing during that war.
Wow, they look so real.
I often hear that comment. You can see that group is on patrol with each figure holding some sort of weapon, ready to act at a moment's notice.
The walls here are really cool too. If you look at them from different angles, you can see the battle scenes.
Yes, as you can see, this memorial contains walls of granite on each side, with images sandblasted onto the surface of troops, moving by land, by air, and by sea.
Cool, check that out. That wall there has words etched into it. Freedom is not free. Wow, that really makes me think.
And it should, Tina. Everyone take about 10 minutes, look around the memorial. Then we'll move on to another one.
About 15 minutes later, Mr. Hansen's class arrives at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
Students, allow me to introduce to you Staff Sergeant Jason Reitz from the U.S. Marine Corps.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. This memorial honors the men who fought in the Vietnam War. About 3 million people visit each year. I want to ask you a question. How many of you have seen the moving wall?
The moving wall.
I saw it with my grandpa a few years ago. He's a Vietnam veteran.
Next time you see your grandpa, tell him that I say thank you for his service to our country.
I will. I remember him looking in this book for the names of some of the soldiers who fought beside who died in the war. Then he walked to the wall and found their names on it.
Did he do what the gentleman over there is doing? Did he take the side of a pencil and place a piece of paper against the wall, and then rub it, the paper with the pencil so his comrade's name appeared on the paper?
You know, I think he did. I remember that I never heard him cry, but when I looked up at him to ask him a question, I realized that he had some tears running down his face. I suppose he was thinking of his friends who had died in the war.
I've seen many people do that here every day. Men, women, young, and old. So many of you lost their husband, their father, or even a grandfather they never knew. I often find myself watching these folks etching a name, and I wonder what's their story. It is. Everyone has a story of all their own.
Sergeant Reese, how many names are on these two walls?
That's a very good question, sir. Each wall is 246 feet long, and there are a total of 58,000 names of service members who are either perishing in the war or missing in action.
58,000? Wow, that's a lot of people.
Wow, just think, that's just in our site.
Yes, it's a sad fact that war results in many, many casualties.
Thank you so much for your time, Sergeant Reitz. We have learned a lot from you today. Students, take a few minutes and look around.
After visiting the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, they head over to the World War II Memorial, near the center of the National Mall.
Wow, this memorial is huge.
Welcome to the World War II Memorial. I am Admiral Testament, and this is Cadet Amy Tate. Cadet Tate is currently a cadet at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. She has assisted me as I meet with school groups like yours.
The memorial you see here today was completed in 2004. This memorial honors the 60 million men and women who served in World War II as members of the American Armed Forces.
16 million?
Yes, 16 million Americans served our country in that World War. Does anyone have any idea how many Americans served in World War II?
8 million?
Fortunately, that's too high. Any other guesses?
2 million?
Fortunately, that number is too high as well. 400,000 Americans died to protect our freedom. and the freedom of others throughout the world in that terrible World War.
There's a great deal of symbolism in the structures you see around you today. What is the first thing you see when you look all around?
Lots of big, thick granite columns.
Yes, there are 56 of these large granite columns. Do you agree that they seem to connect everything together?
Yes, they sure do.
Well, that's intentional. They symbolize the unity of the 48 states, the 7 federal territories, and the District of Columbia that made up America at this time in history, the early 1940s.
So what are those two new structures on each end?
One symbolizes our victory on the Atlantic front, and the other one symbolizes our victory on the Pacific front.
Quick quiz. Who knows what Cadet Tate means when she mentions the Atlantic front and the Pacific front?
I remember this from watching war movies with my grandpa. The Atlantic front refers to the war in and around Europe.
And I know the answer from watching the play South Pacific. The Pacific front refers to the war in and around Japan and Southeast Asia.
Good job. I must admit, I wish you would have said that you remembered learning it in school. But I have to agree, I've learned a lot of things watching TV, movies, and plays, and reading historical fiction. During World War II, there were battles fought in both areas of the world.
Is there a memorial dedicated to World War I in Washington, D.C.?
As a matter of fact, there is not a World War I memorial here. There is a national museum dedicated to that war, but it is in Kansas City, Missouri.
Thank you very much for your time today, Admiral Ames and Cadet Tate. Students, take a few minutes to look around. Let's meet right back here in about 20 minutes. Then we'll stop to have lunch before we head over to Arlington National Cemetery this afternoon.
After lunch, Mr. Hanson and his class board the bus, and Mr. Smith, the bus driver, takes them to Arlington National Cemetery.
Well, here's your next stop. I've been here with school groups many times. You'll be impressed by what you see here today.
The students step off the bus and enter the bustling grounds. Just inside the gate, they are greeted by Colonel Summers, Major Gary, and Private Parks.
Welcome to Arlington National Cemetery. I'm Colonel Richard Summers. It is my honor to show you this national shrine that honors those who have so bravely served our nation and protected our freedom.
I am honored to be with you today, as well as to share this final resting place of more than 400,000 active duty service members, veterans, and their families. I'm Major Stephen Gary.
Did you say 400,000? Wow, this place must be enormous.
Yes, it is quite large, 639 acres large in fact. At its present size, however, we are quickly running out of room. Private Parks, why don't you share a little bit about why that's the case?
Certainly. I'm Private Lance Parks, and I'm stationed here at Arlington National Cemetery. I assist in preparing for the funeral services which take place here every day.
Is that what's going on over there?
Yes, it is. We currently hold up to 30 funeral services here every day, roughly 7,000 a year.
7,000 every year, that means that just in the past 10 years, 70,000 more people have been buried here.
You are correct. Now you understand why we are quickly running out of room. We hope to be able to acquire more space in the future so that this historic cemetery can continue to offer more burial options here.
Does anyone know the history of Arlington National Cemetery?
It was founded during the Civil War.
Correct. Does anyone know the famous families that once lived here?
I can't remember his name, but the leader of the South Army, he and his family lived here, right?
You mean the Confederate Army, right, Corey?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm impressed with all the information this group already knows. Yes, General Robert E. Lee and his family once lived here. The history goes further back than even that, though. Please explain it, Major Gary.
Certainly. This land once belonged to the adopted grandson of George Washington in 1857, so shortly before the Civil War. He willed the land to his daughter, Mariana, and her husband, Robert E. Lee. When General Lee and his family left the property at the start of the Civil War, Union troops made use of the land as a camp and as a headquarters.
Wow, I had no idea. Just think, we're standing on ground that was once a Civil War battlefield.
You are indeed. I know you all are from the Midwest, but when you think about it, much of the land along the eastern coast of the United States once saw the feet of soldiers ready to do battle against fellow Americans. Like the soldiers of today, these young men fought to protect what they believed to be right.
In 1864, the United States government purchased the property and set aside 200 acres to be used as a national cemetery. The first burial here took place on May 13, 1864. By the end of the Civil War, just a year later, thousands of soldiers and former slaves have been buried here.
I have another question for you now. How many of you have heard of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier? We're going to make our way over there in a few moments to watch the changing of the guard. I have an interesting fact to share with you. You all raised your hands when I asked you how many of you had heard of it. Interestingly, the tomb has never officially been named.
Fascinating. I think it's fascinating, don't you? I agree with you, Seth. After all, it's dedicated to remember all of those soldiers who were killed, but whose bodies weren't able to identify.
That's right, young man. Many people think that the tomb of the unknowns holds the body of just one soldier. Once you walk over there, however, you'll see that there are actually tombs of multiple soldiers. Multiple soldiers there. The soldiers buried there represent unknowns from World War I, World War II, and the Korean War.
For a while there, wasn't there a soldier buried from Vietnam War too?
You are correct. However, in May of 1998, that body was exhumed for DNA testing. Scientists were able to identify the body, and remains were given to his family for private burial elsewhere. Since then, that crypt has remained empty. Because of advancements in DNA testing, it is possible that no more soldiers will be interred into the tomb.
Let's head over to the Tomb of the Unknowns. You have showed that you're a very respectful group, so I'm sure I did not need to tell you this, but I will anyway. The changing of the guard is a very somber event. We request silence during the ceremony.
With that, the group visits the Tomb of the Unknowns. They watch as the soldier guarding the tomb marches back and forth on the black mat behind it. At the top of the hour, the class witnesses the changing of the guard. They see two new soldiers meet the current guard at the center of the mat. The commanding officer tells the guard to pass his orders. Soon, the new guard steps onto the black mat and begins marching back and forth behind the tomb, rifle in hand, while the other two soldiers march away. Mr. Hansen and his class quietly leave the area and begin to explore the rest of Arlington National Cemetery.
Well, wow, that was amazing. I think I'd like to go to the tomb someday.
It is a great honor to be chosen to be part of the elite regiment. Did you know that someone is guarding this tomb 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, no matter the weather?
I remember hearing about an Edwards visit in Washington, D.C. last year. You mean that there was even a guard here marching during that dangerous visit?
Yes, sir. They are very dedicated, aren't they? Tyler, do you think you would still like to be a guard of the tomb?
Yes, I think I would.
Late in the afternoon, they exit the Arlington National Cemetery grounds and head over to the next destination.
Oh, I know where we're going next. We're going to see the Iwo Jima Memorial.
Wow, I can't wait to see that one. That looks so cool.
Mr. Hansen's class walks towards the memorial. The closer they get to it, the more impressive it becomes. Soon they arrive where Petty Officer Lane and Staff Sergeant Fry are waiting to greet them.
Good afternoon, you must be Hansen's class.
Yes, sir, we are.
It's a pleasure to meet you all. I am Staff Sergeant Hillary Fry, and I am joined today by Petty Officer Truman Lane. How have you enjoyed your day so far?
It has been incredible.
I agree. It has been incredible. It has also rather been sad, though.
Do you mind sharing why it made you feel so sad?
Well, I keep thinking about the fact that my grandpa could have been one of those soldiers killed in the war. If that had happened, I would never have gotten to know him.
I feel sad because I think of all the young men who died and never had a chance to have families and live the rest of their lives.
And I think of the families that had to deal with the death of a loved one.
I've thought about that too. These memorials and grave sites mean something big to a lot of people.
I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about these things. These memorials mean more to many people than the huge statues and churches. These memorials represent much bigger things like freedom.
And sacrifice.
All very important ideals, wouldn't you agree?
I think it's important to consider the sacrifices that the families of our military have required to make for our country, day in day and day out. They are called to sacrifice time with their loved ones, who are sent to faraway places. Some, of course, are called to make far greater sacrifices when their loved one dies.
It's like those words etched into granite at the Korean War memorial. Freedom is not free.
So true. Okay, let's talk about the memorial that stands before you right now. Most people who regularly refer to as the Iwo Jima Memorial. Does anyone in the group know its official name?
I know this. It's the Marine Corps Memorial.
You're correct. How many of you knew it was based on photographs?
The original photograph was taken by Associated Press photographer named Joe Rosenthal on February 23rd, 1945.
As you can see, it depicts Marines proudly and forcefully planting their American flag into the soil of the South Pacific, signifying the conclusion of the American campaign there during World War II.
We invite you to walk around it slowly and see it from all angles. I find myself truly amazed when I do that.
Mr. Hanson and his students circled the memorial. The events of the day have left everyone feeling unsettled. After dinner, a short while later, they agreed that it has been a wonderful day, but also a somber day.
Students, we have one more memorial to visit today. This stop was not on the schedule sent home to your parents, but Colonel Summers from Arlington National Cemetery was so impressed with our group that he invited us to the place we're going to next.
Mr. Hanson and the students again board the bus.
Mr. Smith, won't you at least give us a hint as to where we are going?
Nope,
Please.
not a chance. I'm not risking getting an army colonel mad at me for spilling the beans. I'm no fool.
Come on, kids, just sit back, enjoy the ride, and let Mr. Smith focus on the driving the bus.
Soon, the bus slows as they approach a massive building with 5 sides.
We're going to the Pentagon? OMG.
Yep, that's where I was directed to deliver you.
Outside their bus, they see a man in a wheelchair and a woman standing beside him. Everyone can see that the man is missing a leg.
Good evening. I was told I would be meeting an impressive group of students this evening. I'm retired Private Steve Rogers, and I am a veteran. I'm joined here this evening by my wife, Robin.
Hi there. When I heard you're from the Midwest, I asked my husband if I could join him this evening. I grew up on a farm. So
I'm just a Midwestern gal.
Wow, it's really nice of you to spend your evening meeting with us.
Robin and I volunteer here a few evenings a month. We enjoy meeting groups like yours. Oh, I forgot. You don't know anything about your visit here this evening, do you?
No, we don't. No one will tell us anything.
how many of you heard of 9/11?
Does everyone know what happened on September 11, 2001?
We have all learned about the day in history, and we know that 2 airplanes slammed into the World Trade Center in New York City, killing thousands of people.
Who can tell me what happened in rural Pennsylvania on 9/11?
I can. That's where an airplane crashed and everyone on the board died. The brave passengers on that flight were able to stop the terrorists who had hijacked the plane from flying into the White House.
Exactly. And who knows what happened here at the Pentagon?
I do. A plane crashes beside the Pentagon at some point.
You are right. 184 lives were lost in that attack on the Pentagon. That number includes both people inside the Pentagon as well as those on the flight. How many of you knew that there's a National 9/11 Memorial?
At this memorial, there are 184 benches engraved with a single name. Each bench honors one individual who died in the military. The bench are used according to each victim's age.
The youngest victim was 3 years old and the oldest was 71 years old.
Please walk around and enjoy the simple view of this memorial.
I also ask you to think about the millions of people over the centuries who have risked and in some cases sacrificed their lives for the freedom you enjoy in this great nation today. Sir, may I ask you, are you a veteran?
Yes, sir, I am. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 25 years. During that time, I was stationed overseas for a total of 5 years. I saw combat in the Gulf War in 1991. Yes, sir, I am proud to say that I am a veteran.
I salute you, sir.
I salute you too. Do I assume correctly that you are in a wheelchair because you were injured in battle?
Yes, I lost my leg a few years ago when the tank I was riding in was hit by a roadside bomb while overseas. Students, will you make a pledge to me today? I also ask you to pledge in your heart when Veterans Day and Memorial Day on the calendar. Each year, you will at least take a few moments to think about the freedom you enjoy and express your gratitude to our veterans by doing something kind for another person. Will you pledge that in your heart right now?
Mr. Hanson and his students were truly moved by the experience visiting the national monuments and memorials in our nation's capital. Every Veterans Day and Memorial Day, they remembered the pledge they made to Private Rogers. They remain truly thankful for the sacrifices made by American servicemen and women and their families to protect our freedoms as Americans.
And take a bow.
I said 10.